Today we will be looking at a giant city, one of our three giants, and this is the largest of the giants. Actually, it was for a very long time the largest city in the world and first of its kind. And for reasons of comparison, we'll look at some other cities you may know and from the same scale. So this is our city, and this is New York. Manhattan Island is right at the center. That's Paris, and that's Istanbul. Obviously, completely different situation and completely different history. When we come back to our city, photograph, same scale, we see that it's extremely spread out. So from east to west, it covers a distance of 55 kilometers, and north to east, north to south, it covers a distance of 35 kilometers. So it is a very, very spread out city. It's not only huge in terms of population, it spreads out into the landscape, as you can see, especially in northeast. It spreads out towards agriculture areas. And this was a unique phenomenon at its time, and we'll talk about it later. And again, we are comparing the areas covered by Istanbul at the top and London at the bottom. And our city is, well, I already said it's London, an industrial city. So we are zooming in a little bit, and we can see areas with larger buildings and, well, white uh, buildings. So basically, this means in an aerial photograph, industrial buildings, so industrial areas. So almost right into the center of the city, we can see huge areas full with these sort of buildings. And also towards the west, we can see huge conglomeration of industrial buildings. So basically, this is an industrial city, and it has almost always has been an industrial city as well. At the same time, this is a city of huge and plenty of parks. So it's an indication of that some sort of planning have been there at a certain point. These huge parks to be more or less right at the center at the city, but not only at the center, all around the city. And again, as comparison, we can look at our city and how our city would have looked if it would have the same kind of parks at the city center. Now we are looking at a map of London, which is almost 200 years old, 1822. And at that time, London is already a giant city. It has a population of 1.5 million people. And at that time, actually since almost 50 years, London is the most populous city in the world. And um, it's not just giant in terms of population, it's giant in terms of the area it's covering. So uh, east to west, the city covers an area of 10 kilometers. That's quite something. Now this map is from 1863, approximately 40 years after the previous map, and the population has grown more than 100%. So now the city has a population of 3.5 million people. So this city is now, for its time, not only a giant city, it's a big giant. It's the giant of giants kind of thing. It's humongous. It's unprecedented. A city like that never existed in the world until that time. And this city is not only huge, extremely huge in terms of population, it's also huge in terms of the area it's covering. It was already very large, as we have discussed a moment ago in the previous slide. Now it covers, its dimensions have doubled up. So its width, east to west, is almost double. And also its width, north to south, is also double. So the area it covers is approximately 3 times as large as previously. And this is actually interesting because imagine this is 1863, and people, most of the people, actually walk to their jobs. And this was a huge problem at early London. And it's a logistical nightmare to solve that problem. So um, they had to actually find some solutions in order to tackle that. And this will be some of your questions. Actually, it's not too complicated. London had to invent some new modes of organizing the city and organizing its population. So to tackle these huge dimensions. Now we are looking at a contemporary photograph of approximately the city center, but actually it's very hard to find out where the historic city center is. Right at the center of this photograph, we can see some taller buildings by their shadows, but normally our historic city centers do look like that, like the historic city center in Barcelona. So it's very obvious. It has a very dense texture. It has an organic streets, very homogeneous, and certainly very different than the modern plan of Cerdà. But we cannot really see at first look anything like that in London. So if we zoom in to the area, so actually, if you look closer, the street pattern is rather organic. So there is no organization whatsoever, and there aren't many public spaces. So actually, it's very dense. But unlike Barcelona, although the street patterns are similar, the buildings are completely different. So we see many buildings right at the historic center. Actually, these seem to be skyscrapers, and also some huge modern building complexes right at the historic center. Again, if you zoom in further, this becomes more evident. So the Cathedral of London is here, St. Paul's Cathedral, right at the southwest. But towards northwest, we can see a huge modern complex, and also right at the center of the image, another modern complex. And also, we see a number of construction sites right at the city center. So we don't only see these modern complexes, and we don't only see these skyscrapers right at the historic city center, but the city center is being continuously rebuilt. And for a European city, again, remember Barcelona, this is very different. This is very unique. Because in almost all European cities, historic centers are extremely well preserved. So this means that something must have happened. London has an interesting history to make these modern buildings right at the city center possible. Okay, now we are looking at the population diagram of the city. Until 1600, it was not necessarily a very important city outside of the British Islands. But starting in 18th century, and especially after beginning of 19th century, the population increases exponentially, especially the change between 1850 to approximately 1900 is unbelievable. So within almost 50 years, the population triples, and this extreme population increase continues in 20th century as well. So something has happened. Something has happened between 1800, especially 1850, and beginning of end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century. So what do you think must have happened that made London population to jump from approximately 1 million to 3, 4 million, and even 5 million? As you can imagine, a population increase like that, as we have looked a little bit on the map, comes with a number of problems, huge problems. And some of these are explained in the reading. And look at the reading and also think about the problems this huge population increase may cause for a city. Okay, we'll be talking about that next Tuesday. See you soon.